Total Tech, your leading HVAC plumbing and electrical training provider, is located in Nashville, Tennessee. Here we have a beautiful 10,000 square foot training facility. The plumbing lab features 7 full house simulators equipped with every plumbing fixture found in modern homes. The electrical lab allows attendees to perform real-world procedures with power tools, but under the supervision of qualified instructor. The HVAC lab has 7 functioning systems in a controlled environment. Each unit malfunctions on demand, giving students real problems. Mike Jones, a graduate of Total Tech, is our head HVAC instructor. He is an accomplished service technician and contractor. Greg Slade, an 18-year plumbing veteran, brings 4 generations of experience to the program. Greg developed our plumbing course. Beeman Lawrence holds a master electrician license with 18 years of electrical experience and has developed our electrical fundamentals course. Greg brings real-world experience to the classroom by showing students everyday plumbing procedures performed on his own state-of-the-art custom-built classroom trainers. Let's listen in on one of Greg's classes in progress.
The floors and the walls are going to be relatively square in most situations. So I'm going to go ahead and tack that in, and I've got a line installed with some fall to it. Now, if I want to pick up that drop, this is what we did with our water lines. We went ahead and hung our main line and then came back and cut our T's and Y's in. And we can do that somewhat with a situation like this, that I've got my main line hung that I'm going to use. I need to pick that drop up, and in this situation, since I'm loose on both ends, I could just cut this in and make it happen. If I was trying to figure out this horizontal distance, let's pretend this end is fixed and can't move. I need to figure out where I need to cut this pipe to put this Y in. And that's where I'm going to measure horizontally off of something. So in that situation, I might come up here and measure off of the plane of the edge of this table, and I can see that I'm 34 1/4 over from the edge of the table to the center of this pipe. Well, then I could come down here and come 34 1/4 over, and I could make myself a mark right here at 34 1/4, and I could use my level to transfer that down to my pipe, make sure my level is level, and I could mark my pipe at that 34 1/4, knowing that that's lined up with that, not by eyeballing it, but by measuring it. So there's my center, and I know if I put this together to make my combo, then I want that center to be centered and aiming at that. So then I'm going to hold my combo up, and I may take my level and transfer if I can get it to be held up enough to feel good about eyeballing that. Now I know I can cut that Y in by cutting this pipe right here, and it's going to be lined up with that, and it's going to be straight and square and plumb.
The educational process of Total Tech really comes together for students in the plumbing lab. Anyone will tell you that the best way to learn is to put your hands on it. Our lab is unrivaled in offering the student a chance to put their hands on nearly any situation they would likely encounter while working in the field of residential plumbing. In this footage, you see students after hearing a lecture on the layout process using horizontal and vertical planes and their transference for a perfect layout every time, and seeing a hands-on physical demonstration in the classroom applying that theory to real life, which you saw a clip of a moment ago. Students follow the same process of transferring horizontal and vertical planes for a perfect layout with their own hands in an even more real-life situation as they begin to install the piping system for their personal trainer unit, using the accumulated skills of drilling and notching with safety and confidence, cutting and joining piping and tubing, and the application of code and fixture rough-in requirements. By the end of the plumbing fundamentals class, the student will have plumbed an entire system from the piping to the fixtures that has passed a rough and final inspection. They will have diagnosed failures in electric water heaters, thermal expansion tanks, and pressure reducing valves, rebuilt faucets and toilets, installed sump pumps and reset urinals, cleaned plug main lines and located camera heads, performed maintenance on gas tanked and tankless heaters. You name it, we've got it. With our maximum 6-to-1 student-teacher ratio, each student gets the personal hands-on instruction that they need to ensure that they are grasping the concepts presented. You hear it, you see it, you do it. and the theory combined with applied application leads to understanding, confidence, and competence. It leads to less callbacks, increased customer credibility, and maximized efficiency. It leads to a job well done and you to success. Let's look into the classroom and watch Beeman talk about electrical grounds and neutrals. This is where students get solid electrical theory before actually applying it in the lab on the trainers.
Ungrounded conductor that we leave to future-proof this switch in case we bring in a digital device that requires that neutral. The reason they're doing that is because otherwise what tends to happen, and what I've seen in the field coming behind other contractors, is they pick up this equipment ground that is supposed to be bonded to this metal yoke to bond all the metal parts together. They just jump that off to pick up a neutral. And we discussed that yesterday. That could be very dangerous because the neutral can be a misnomer in our minds that we think that it's neither engaged nor disengaged. It's neutral. It doesn't care either way. Not necessarily. The way I try to think of it, that neutral is just sitting there waiting as a return path to the source whenever that control device closes that circuit. So it's just standing there waiting to do its job. That doesn't necessarily mean that its job is not hazardous. Neutrals can carry current and voltage. So we don't want to tie in this equipment grounding conductor to a device that has a neutral and thus potentially energize every metal part in that facility or that house. So it's very important. Now, would it work if we tied this in? Is the potential difference between this equipment ground and this ungrounded conductor 120 volts in this case? Yeah, absolutely. We take our meter and we go to our grounding post on our plug to our hot or to our ungrounded conductor. The potential difference, because ground is 0 and our hot is pushing at 120, so the potential difference is 120 volts. So yeah, that device would work. So in that particular case, functionality, it works, but it's not done correctly, and there's a safety element there that hasn't been taken into consideration. So functionality is not our #1 goal. Doing it correctly, and then functionality is a byproduct of doing it correctly.
Technical training is not complete without practical application. Our electrical lab blends the classroom theory with real live exercises and practical applications. Here, the students are instructed on using the right tools for the proper application. The instructors cover safety precautions that must be practiced on all job sites. Using the tools in the proper fashion will reduce job time and improve bottom line profits, as well as keep risk management to a minimal. Beeman instructs the attendee on using the amp meter. This practical lab exercises teaches the attendee how to measure amp draw in an electrical panel that utilizes an electric generator backup, one of the many trainer modules used in the electrical fundamentals class. Here, the student gets to prepare the electrical panel with knockout tools. Letting the student actually do the work gives them the sense of accomplishment and pride. This also gives the student time to practice for themselves and see how mechanical and electrical procedures meld together to form the final product. Beeman instructs the attendees on the advantages of thermal topography. The attendee performs thermal checks on breaker panels and makeup boxes for abnormal heat signatures. The lab brings life to boring classroom abstract mathematical formulas by allowing the student to perform calculations using real-world measured amp and voltage readings. Watch this seasoned technician practice our techniques. Our lab allows the student to prove they not only know how to do the job, but also are able to perform it. Total Tech believes in small classes because every student must get as much instructor time as possible. This ensures that the attendee gets every question answered. The electrical trainer boards are an integral part of the electrical learning process. Each student must properly wire the light circuit through several types of switches, contactors, and safeties. This ensures the student understands the flow of power and electrical safety. Notice the lockout-tagout emphasis. The HVAC classroom is headed up by Mike Jones. Mike has a passion for the trade as well as for his students.
Let's go back over this evaporator approach and high delta T. You guys had a chance to go over this and study this last night? If you have it in your hand, do me a favor and let's turn it over. see what kind of quiz we got this morning, if you have it in your hand. Let's talk about that evaporator approach. The evaporator approach, what does that tell me? What's the definition of that? Help me out here. Yeah, it's the quantity of heat transfer out of the air into the liquid refrigerant. Your supply air minus your saturated suction temperature is your evaporator approach, right? So if we do not have the quantity of heat transfer out of the air into the liquid refrigerant into the evaporator, what's that going to do to my suction pressure? Why? Why is my suction pressure going to go low? If I've got a high evaporator approach, why is that suction pressure going low? Explain. So if you do not have the right amount of heat transfer, we've got an evaporator blockage, evaporator malfunction, let's say it's stopped up. If you don't have the quantity of heat transferring into the liquid refrigerant, well, how is it supposed to boil over and create a vapor and create our suction pressure? It can't do it, can it? So what about that delta T? So it could be low, normal, or high. So if I have a high delta T, it could be low, normal, or high. Absolutely. Explain to me one more time what that evaporator approach is. Out of the air in the liquid refrigerant. So let's go. How do I get my delta T, by the way? Supply air, my return air. Absolutely. And that's going to be known as my delta T. If I got a high delta T, it's always low airflow. So that brings us back over here to this thing.
Let's take a look at Total Tech's HVAC lab and find out why everyone is talking about this one-of-a-kind workshop. The lab is environmentally controlled for real-world functionality. Each unit has its own environmental chamber that controls its ambient, thereby creating varying operating conditions. Manufacturers stress proper airflow, therefore we cover 4 different airflow measuring methods. Here the student learns to measure airflow by the grill traverse method. Our lab instructor, Matt Tipton, goes over the symptoms of high external static pressure and how it affects system operation. Our students record system operating parameters onto our troubleshooting guide to help them keep all the information in a systematic format for diagnostic purposes. In the lab are where attendees put the pieces of the diagnostic puzzle together. The diagnostic mystery is revealed by understanding operating system parameters. Matt goes over the heat pump troubleshooting guide numbers with the students to help them determine which component of the malfunctioning heat pump is the problem. Here the student is explaining to Mike why he believes the unit is experiencing a low airflow situation. Mike is questioning him about the diagnostic process. Matt is going over the troubleshooting guide parameters with the student. Repetition gives the student the needed experience to help solidify the diagnostic procedures. The HVAC Analysis 1 course acquaints the students with silver brazing and nitrogen usage. To ensure performing projects safely, Matt goes over the acetylene oxygen setup. In the HVAC Analysis 1 class, the students are acquainted with the flow of power. Matt demonstrates using the voltmeter how the flow of power works. The HVAC Analysis 1 students get up close and personal with this dual fuel heat pump. Mike explains the flow of power and component operation. Mike explains how to properly check a malfunctioning package heat pump. Our procedures distinguish compressor malfunctions from reversing valve malfunctions and also from metering device malfunctions. Our motto is, don't roll the dice to diagnose, know the proper procedure. We asked our instructors to sit down and explain in their own words some of the reasons why the Total Tech training experience is different from the other typical technical trade schools. Listen in on our instructor dialogue to what they had to say.
I think what separates Total Tech is our process, our passion, and our professionalism. That process of learning that theory in the classroom, then seeing that theory put to use, but then most essentially putting that theory to use yourself out in the lab. You know, that's what no one else has to offer. Yeah. That we can teach these guys
and then we can go out and they can see themselves that they're doing it with their own hands in real life experiences. That's, I think, what nobody else can offer. You know, that ability that we have with our facility and with our units, with our training modules, that nobody else has those to work on. I know with you guys, that's probably the same.
Oh yeah, absolutely. As far as, you know, process and procedure for us is number one, you know, as far as any schools I've heard concerned. You know, the way we do things in the classroom is about 20% here, and we spend about 80% of it, you know, in the lab out there with hands-on and real-world experiences. Absolutely.
Yeah, and the electrical is the same way. The guys, they're able to visually see things because we have the parts and all the small little instruments that we use in the classroom, able to put their hands on it, see the internal workings of some of these components. And we go through the theory, basic theories, get the concepts across, because the ultimate goal is to get them out to the lab, to where we can take and put all of that together out in the lab in one continuous process.
Absolutely.
And now it just reinforces, they've been in the classroom, they understand, or they're introduced to the theory, and they can see all the different components and how they relate to each other. Whether it's electrical, plumbing, or HVAC, I know it's all the same. It's a congruent philosophy among all three of us, and we can build off of each other. And the whole goal is to get them out to that lab. I agree.
Over the past 16 or so minutes, you watched the paradigm of Total Tech. Our people, our theory, and our methods make up this training model. You have watched multitudes of attendees come through our halls and now enjoy a trade they understand and can perform for a lifetime. If you're a contractor considering the idea of sending a new hire to us, you can rest assured every minute spent here at Total Tech will be spent on learning time-tested techniques that emphasize technician competence, business sense, and customer satisfaction. You may be considering sending a seasoned technician to Total Tech that may need to bring his game to a higher performing level. You can send him or her with confidence, knowing our instructors will invest every ounce of energy into your technician to guide him to the highest plateau possible. So whether you send a novice or a seasoned technician to Total Tech, they will receive applicable theory in the classroom, as well as practical hands-on exercises in the lab. You have seen the facility, listened to the instructors, and observed the exercises in the lab. The next step is to contact Shauna at 615-459-8024 to register for the next available class. Or you can go to www.totaltechschool.com for more information on class times and dates. Thank you for your patronage, and we do not take your support lightly. We want you to succeed. God bless.